and welcome to Books Unbound, the podcast where we unbind books to get to their hearts with your hosts, us. It's Ariel and
Raylene. Hello.
We're
We're back.
a fun old episode. Yeah, exactly. We're back.
Hey.
So we took a week off. I think we talked about doing this like as far back as June. We were like, we should do a summer week off.
Yeah.
And then in July, you were like, actually, your anniversary was coming up and you wanted to like take a long weekend. And we were like, perfect, let's do that.
Yeah, worked out
So we took a week off, which was honestly much needed.
Yeah.
Much needed.
I, like the whole weekend, because I basically had 5 days off, including the Monday that is normally like our podcast day. So I was like, I just have 5 days where I don't have to like think about what I'm going to say on the podcast. That was essentially like just like released my mind. I was like, I can just read and just do that work later. And it felt so good to be able to do that. And do you actually want to hear something really funny that I discovered just now when I sat down to record?
I do want to.
When I grabbed my microphone, there was a cobweb on it. I was
That's
like,
so funny.
oh, okay, yeah, I guess it's been a while.
It's time to dust this whole thing off.
It cracked me up. I was like, how dare you, Spider?
That's a little dramatic.
Yeah, I know. It felt like a cartoon moment.
Yeah, that Spider is like a big fan of the podcast and is like angry, is like a little passive aggressive.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things that happens with everything, but you don't realize how much mental capacity something takes up until you do truly take a step away from it. Yeah. And you're like, oh, wow, yeah, throughout the week, I actually think about the podcast a lot. And when we got to take a week off, it was really nice. So anyway, all of that to say, we had a nice time off, but we're also equally glad to be back. Like, I feel a little refreshed.
Yeah, I feel
re-energized.
Good. Yeah, I feel good today.
Today's going to be a great episode because of two and a half things. First of all, and most excitingly, later on, we are going to be chatting with one of our favorite authors, Miss A.S. King. Woo!
It's going to be great.
So, we have A.S. King coming on the podcast. We are so excited to record with her. We haven't talked with her yet. We're going to be recording that later today. And we're just really excited to talk with her. We've had her on the podcast before.
Yeah. It's been a while.
She's the best. And we're very excited as well to talk about her new book because she has a new book that's coming and hitting the scene pretty soon, actually.
Yeah.
So we'll be chatting with her all about that. That's going to be really, really fun. And we're really excited because we also have like toyed around with having authors on the podcast before, and we're just like trying to figure out the best way to do that. And I think we may have figured it out for this episode.
I think so. I guess we'll see.
So like, that's the first thing that's really exciting. The second thing is just catching up with you guys after 2 weeks gone.
Yeah.
The 0.5 exciting thing is that Raylene just got a little tiny package from me.
Oh, yeah.
In the mail. And
Kyle delivered it right when we were about to start recording.
Yeah.
So it was perfect
timing.
I'm very excited.
Perfect timing. So, for the hell of it, let's start there. Whoa. It really is so tiny.
Okay. Let's open this puppy up.
It really is.
Yeah, like it's I've never received such a thin little package. Like it's just a baby.
Does it not have like a little rip tab? I think
it does, but it didn't want to work, so I'm using my muscles instead.
Thank God you've been working out for this moment.
So strong. Okay, so there's an envelope and a tiny something in there. I'll not look too closely at that while I open the card. Oh, that's a cool sticker. It looks like the Northern Lights or something. Is that what that's supposed to be?
That is what it is.
At first I thought it was slime. Cool.
My friend gave me a little packet of Northern Lights stickers.
Oh, this is so cute, Ariel. I'm just going to show people the front of the card. It's very cute. It's
very like Nova Scotia.
Very Nova Scotia, very fishing vibes.
Very fishing.
All right.
Very
we've got
fishing.
something cute in a little... Wow, this is really loud.
Yeah. It's kind of overwhelming.
A little bit. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, it's an adorable keychain. Oh, it's Gigi from Kiki's Delivery Service.
Yay!
I love that you saw a keychain and thought of me and wanted to send it to me. That's so, like, beautiful. It's got a little bell on it.
Yeah,
That's
so
so
I
cute.
kind of feel like it should be a Christmas ornament.
I agree with that. Actually, I was gonna say I almost want to like hang it on my wall rather than.
I know. I feel
gonna
like
find a
as a
spot for that.
keychain, I feel like
It
it
would get
would
hurt.
break.
It would get hurt.
Yeah,
Big time.
I think it would break. So when I saw it, I thought it was a Christmas ornament, and then she was like, "It's a keychain." I was like, "Well, maybe it's not."
I don't have to believe that.
But yeah, we talked about this, I think, on the last episode or the episode before, that I had gone to a video game convention or conference or competition tournament. Good Lord.
Who knows?
And they had like an artist's alley, you know, like with
yeah.
a lot of little vendors and booths. And I was walking around and I saw that and I was like, Raylene needs this ornament.
Yes.
So
I need
Merry
any
Christmas.
kind of black cat
Yeah,
thing
exactly.
is my vibe. That's 100% my brand. Thank you so much. That was very
Merry
nice
Christmas.
of you. Merry
Hallelujah.
Christmas to all.
To all,
love that.
a good night.
Woohoo!
Woohoo. All right. Well, you know what? I'm going to start us off with my reading update. Because it is not mighty.
Oh, scary.
So what's funny is like right before we hit record, Raylene was like we give each other little notes about what we're going to talk about so that we both know what's coming up.
Yeah.
And so Raylene was like, just so you know, I do have a haul and I read 3 books. And I'm like, okay, well, that's good because I didn't finish anything. So what I think is funny is that clearly we reacted to the our break differently.
Yeah.
I thought that I was going to read a lot because I was like, you know, it's my time off. I can read a lot. What actually happened was my brain was like, okay, you don't need to read right now. You can take a break from reading because you're not doing the podcast. And so I actually had the opposite vibe. I
love
really
that.
didn't read very much. However, I am in the middle of 2 books.
Ooh, okay.
And so I'm going to give an update on my currently readings.
Okay.
The first one is my audiobook. I started a new audiobook, and it's kind of it's a little bit of a strange choice.
Okay.
It is called Dopamine Nation by Anna Lemke. And the subtitle is Finding Balance in the Age of Indulgence.
Ooh.
So this is basically a book about dopamine. It
Yeah.
really is about dopamine. What that chemical does in our brain and how our current era is very interestingly overwhelmed with dopamine. So like we're finding so much to be kind of addicted to is her thesis. I'm not saying I fully agree with it or whatever. I'm not a psychiatrist or a scientist, so what do I know? But you know, in the synopsis, it talks about all of the high dopamine, high reward stimuli we have, drugs, food, like the abundance of food that we have is so interesting when you think about how we were designed, like how we evolved. We did not evolve to have this much food on hand. News, gambling, shopping, gaming, texting, Facebooking, like all of the social medias, the amount of stuff that we have, the smartphone, how that's really changed us. So I find the topic interesting. I do also, though, like always take these books with like a pile of salt. Because pop sci is such an interesting genre, and a lot of the time it can be really great. But I think that I don't know. A lot of the time I'm like, I feel like they're really over-exaggerating stuff in order to get a whole book out of what could be a study or an article. I am so far enjoying it. I am, however, finding it pretty repetitive. I am basically 50% of the way through. And so hopefully I can report back next week or the week after with my final thoughts.
How long is the audiobook?
That's a really good question. I think it was like 7 hours.
That's good.
So, yeah. And then the other thing I'm in the mid, I feel like I'm like a third into it, is Breasts and Eggs.
Oh, yay. I'm
by
glad you actually started it.
Kawakami. Oh, yeah. I started it the day that you picked it. And it has one of the best starts, like best first pages of any book
that's
I've ever
intriguing.
picked up. It just has such a fantastic start. Like, really, like, we're off to the races kind of a feeling. Like, we're it's very exciting. However, it's sort of it's very stressful and a little bit grotesque.
Oh, interesting.
Not like truly grotesque, but just like there's hilariously, a lot of talk of breasts.
Yes. I always wondered why that book was called that, so...
I don't know why I didn't expect it, but grotesque isn't the right word. I guess just like explicit
Graphic.
or uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable is the word. Where it's just a little bit like, wow, we're really like talking about breasts a lot in an uncomfortable way. So far it's these three women, the main character and her sister and her sister's daughter.
Yeah.
They all come over to her place. She lives, like, main character lives in Tokyo. Her sister and her sister's daughter have come over to stay with her for a while, just for like a couple of days, like a weekend or something. And her sister's obsession right now is with getting breast augmentation surgery or like breast implants or something like that. And she's like obsessed with breasts, and she's just always talking about them. And she's like, they have a spa culture, like a baths culture in Japan, where they're like, let's go to the baths, and then they just like go steam and stuff like that, which is not a thing here, obviously. So it feels very different to me, but it's obviously normal in the book. But they go to these baths and they're naked and they're staring at people and like just looking, or not staring, but like whatever, they're looking around. And the sister just she's like, look at those breasts, and like, admit it, my breasts are weird. And so now the sister's like having to look at her sister's breasts, and she's just like, I don't know what to say. So that's what I mean by uncomfortable.
Yeah, okay.
It's just like, it's not grotesque. There's nothing wrong with breasts, but it's just like a little weird.
Yeah.
And I think it's supposed to be.
This. Yeah. Totally.
I think it's supposed to be. Like, the main character feels very uncomfortable, and she wishes that her sister was like not so obsessed with her breasts and like everything that goes along with that. And then the I guess her niece has taken a vow of silence.
Ooh.
Sort of like in what's it called? Little Miss Sunshine. Do you remember the teenager in Little Miss Sunshine?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah. He refuses to talk until he gets his pilot's license or whatever. She has started refusing to talk to her mom and to her aunt, but she talks at school, and she hasn't said to her mom why she won't talk to her.
Ooh.
So it's like that's a bit of a mystery that's going on. So I will say I am enjoying the book. I am finding it a little stressful. Like it's a little just like I said, uncomfortable. But also it's I'm probably like 100 pages in, and what's funny is usually I'd be done the book by now, because most of the books I read are 100 to 200 pages long, right? But this book is 430 pages, which is part of the reason you picked it, right?
Yeah.
You wanted me to read a longer book, which I never do. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it just is going to take me like a couple of weeks to read it.
Yeah, you just got to take your time with it.
Which is totally fine.
Yeah.
And I also did just want to mention that I also am borrowing it from my library and partly reading it on my e-reader, which has just been really convenient at night.
Very good.
So that's my reading update. There you go, Raylene.
Okay.
Your turn.
My turn.
What's
okay,
up?
well, let me just tell you everything. So, obviously, I mean, last time we met, you knew that I was reading a couple of books. So, I've finished both of those. So, I'll just jump into those, and then I read another one that you don't know about. So, first off, let me talk about Taste by Stanley Tucci. Stanley Tucci is a renowned actor who has starred in movies like The Devil Wears Prada, Julia and Julia, The Hunger Games, Big Night, and many more. In this book, he recounts stories of food from his childhood up until now, while peppering in details about his life that helped to understand him more. Fun fact, he's married to Emily Blunt's sister, Felicity. The couple met at the premiere of his movie The Devil Wears Prada, while Tucci was married to his first wife, Kate Tucci, who later passed away in 2009. This book was really great. I didn't like zip through it like I originally thought I was going to, and I did switch to the audiobook. I can't remember if I mentioned that last time, but
I think you did.
Listening to it on audiobook was just so much better. Like, he's got a great voice. It's great to hear people's stories in their own voices, etc., etc. So I was really happy to switch over to that, and I ended up like playing Mario Kart while I was listening to it, which is so random, but I was able to just kind of, have a chill time listening to Stanley talk about food. But it's a good thing that I did read part of the physical book, though, because I know that there are like recipes throughout, which he does read out in the audiobook, but it felt a little weird listening to him just like list ingredients and then talk about how to make them into food. But there are like lots of recipes throughout the book, which I really want to make now, because most of them are just like super simple, like Italian dishes that anyone could probably make, and I would never think to make. So I'm really just like excited about that aspect.
Cool.
And Yeah, like I said, it's about food. Like for the most part, it is
Right.
like personal stories about like him growing up and the food that he would have with his family and all this stuff. But he also just talks about his life, so you kind of get to know him a bit better, which is cool because I didn't really know much about him at all.
Yeah.
Like something that I didn't realize that he talks about later in the book is he actually got cancer that affected his mouth, and it's like he couldn't taste, and like it like messed up his whole like he couldn't enjoy food for a really long time, and it was like, oh my god, it was so stressful to read about, but like he's okay.
Yeah, seriously.
But I didn't even know that had happened, so that was really interesting to read about. But yeah, I really ended up enjoying it, and I don't really have too much to say, but it was good. If you're interested in food and Stanley Tucci, then I would definitely recommend checking it out. I still need to watch the movie Big Night, which he like talks about a lot in the book too, because it's a movie about like people having a restaurant, and so it's kind of one of those iconic things that I just have been meaning to watch and haven't gotten around to. And then the second book that I was reading that I have finished is Oryx and Crake by Miss Margaret Atwood. Margaret Atwood was born in Ottawa in 1939 and is still a prolific writer to this day. Her newest book, Old Babes in the Woods, was published in March 2023 and follows characters she has written about previously in other stories. A fact I learned from watching her interview with Seth Meyers. Who knew she was on there? Amongst over 50 novels, she invented the long pen in 2004, which is a device that allows a person to write remotely in ink anywhere in the world via tablet and the internet and a robotic hand. Whoa. So first off, how random is that last fact? Did you know that about her?
No, but I love that.
I was looking her up on Wikipedia and I was like, she's an inventor? So that just made me love her more. Long pen.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know why it was invented back then, but I'm sure if it's still in use to this day, it must have come in very useful during COVID because it's like a remote signing device kind of thing. I don't know.
Wow.
Pretty crazy. But anyway, so Oryx and Crake. Oh boy. How do I explain Oryx and Crake? So last week when I talked about it, I was loving it. And I was loving it. The first half of the book, for me, was like 5 out of 5. Like, I really, really loved the first half of the book.
Yes, you were loving it.
I was loving it. I found it very easy to read. I found it very interesting. The kind of back and forth between two different timelines and like trying to figure out how they mesh together. I found that whole like intrigue and mystery very interesting. But it got to a point around the halfway point where, because at the beginning of the book, you've got Snowman in his apocalyptic area, and then you've got him as a child, basically like up to the age of maybe like 12. And so like that's, they're very far separated from each other. And so it was very interesting to just like learn about his life as a kid and his family and all that. But then about halfway through the book, he's now older. He's like 19 or 20. He's going to college. And then his friend Crake is this guy, and he's also going to college. They go to different schools, and they're both just like really smart guys, like studying weird topics. And so that part, for some reason, wasn't that interesting to me. And I was... Okay. And also, like, the book is called Oryx and Crake, right?
Right.
I feel like Crake is a very important character. I feel like Oryx didn't matter at all. And so it kind of, like, the whole time I was like, okay, what is she contributing to the story? And I feel I just feel like she wasn't really contributing that much to the story, like, enough to have the book named after her. She just kind of felt like just like a little side piece to the story, if you will. Yeah, so that kind of just like weirded me out. And then as it kind of got towards the end of the book, it did get a little bit exciting towards the end, but it just didn't have that intrigue. Like it kind of just let go of the whole intrigue, because you kind of, around maybe like halfway through the book, I was able to be like, okay, yeah, I think I can see where this is going. And I don't know, it just kind of lost me a little. I found it kind of boring, honestly, which was really sad. So to answer the question that I'm sure you'll ask, I'm not going to be continuing on with the series.
Really?
Yeah, I just don't care anymore. And although I think that the next books, like I think they're all kind of about different characters, but I just don't care about the world enough anymore. Because like for me, the intrigue of this book was finding out, how does Jimmy become Snowman? And you kind of find that out in this book. Okay. And I feel like I don't need to know more about the world.
Hot damn.
So I just said, no, sorry. I don't want that anymore. So unfortunately, I would say liked it in the end. Like I didn't hate the book by any means, because I did love the beginning. Like I really loved the beginning. So I would still recommend it if you're interested in it. It just didn't quite work for Ruben, unfortunately.
Old Rube.
Yeah. So I spent the first maybe like week of our time off just like reading those 2 books, and it kind of took me a long time to get through them. So I feel like I could have read a lot more if I had like just started something new right at the beginning of our vacation.
Interesting.
So I feel like I was kind of slogging through Oryx and Crake, unfortunately, and it kind of ruined my mood a little bit. Almost like
dragged you down.
Yeah, it dragged me down. And so I was like, okay, you know what? I need to read something quick and short, and I wanted to read something for Women in Translation Month. So
What?
Yeah, are you excited?
No way.
I read Astral Season, Beastly Season by Tahi Sayate.
Illegal. I think that's slightly illegal because I bought that book before you did, and I think you then bought it because of me.
Definitely.
So now I'm like, crap, I should have read it first. I mean, it's not illegal. It's almost like, it's like a two-way crime. Crime number 1 was I should have read it faster. That's the main crime.
Yeah.
Crime number 2 is you read it before I did instead of doing a buddy read.
The problem is we can't buddy read everything. You know, that's
it's
just
so
never
true.
going to happen.
We do like 2 a year, so there's so many buddy reads we want to do.
All right, well, let me tell you about the book, and then maybe you'll want to read it.
Okay.
Tahi Sayate was born in Kobe, Japan in 1986. She started writing poems on the internet and won a prize for her first poetry collection, and Astral Season, Beastly Season is her first novel. Kalau Almani, who is the translator, is from Kailua, Hawaii, and currently lives in Tokyo. He has worked on the novels of Fuminori Nakamura, and most recently this novel, Astral Season, Beastly Season. This book, first of all, I went into it kind of expecting it to be similar to Idle Burning. As we've discussed,
Totally.
Idle Burning is another book that is about, people who are obsessed with an idol and something kind of sinister happening with the idol. And that those are kind of the 2 similarities that these books have. This one was much more sinister than that book.
Oh.
That book is kind of just more about like a girl being so obsessed with someone and not even like wanting to protect them necessarily, but just, just kind of being in that situation. Whereas this book is about 2 high school boys. They're both 17 and they're both obsessed with this underground idol. So she's this idol that a lot of people don't actually even know who she is. And she's kind of local to them. Like they live close to her. One of them has found out where she lives, like stuff like that. Like, so it's a little bit more like creepy, a little bit more like stalker vibes. And at the beginning of the book, it is announced that she murdered her boyfriend. And the kid, I'm going to call them kids because in my head they were like 13 the whole time. I didn't realize they were 17. But they are like so devastated by this, and the not the main character but his friend, they're not even really friends, they just kind of discover that they're both fans of her and are like, they join up together. And this other guy says, we have to protect her, we have to make them think that it was us who killed that guy. And the main character's like, sure, like what do we do? How do we do that? Thinking like it'll just be some kind of easy, normal thing to do. But this other guy decides, I need to kill someone else in the exact same way so that it looks so that I can kind of like lead them on a trail towards me. God. And he's like, I'll leave clues so that they can figure out it's me and all this stuff. Because at the beginning, like they don't believe that she actually did this. So it all starts out as them just like trying to kind of take suspicion off of her, but it turns into something more sinister, which is I need to actually become like the suspect and actually do these bad things so that the police will come after me. And so the main character's kind of grappling with that. He's like, oh, I don't know if this is like the way we want to do this, but this other guy just starts doing it. And so it becomes this kind of crazy like moment for the main character. And the thing that I really liked about this book actually is that it's split into 2 distinct parts. At first I was like, are these 2 separate novellas? But they're not. It's just split into 2 very distinct parts. So the first part is really focusing on that. And then the second part is from the perspective of one of their classmates. And it's like after everything has gone down, after this whole situation has been wrapped up, and it's her like grappling with, what does this mean? Like this guy was someone I was friends with and he went on like a killing spree. Like what does that mean? Like how do I feel about that? And it's like really kind of goes into her feelings, which was really interesting to see like a couple of very different perspectives. So it was a really like thought-provoking book, and for such a short little book, like it really packed a punch, and I really, really liked it. Like I liked it a lot. I liked it more than Oryx and Crake, that's for sure. So, so I'm glad that I decided to read it. It just hit at the right time.
Yeah, that's so sick.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that it worked out because it has like, God, everything about it is perfect. The cover, the title, the look, the tininess of the book, the synopsis. And it's so sad when something is like that and then it falls a bit flat.
Yeah.
You're like, God, the marketing team did everything right. But the book is a little bit of a letdown.
I also was kind of worried because it has a lot of like low reviews on Goodreads, which I always take with a grain of salt with Japanese novels because I feel like there's so many times where people might have come to it not realizing that it's going to have a totally different vibe from maybe what people are used to reading. And so I'm like, you know what? 3.4, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything to me. I'll give it a try. And I ended up really liking it. Like it's been, I'd say, one of my more favorite Japanese novels I've read recently, like in the past year or so.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Like, it's still like a 4-star read, but it's up there. Yeah. Like, I really like it.
Yeah.
I kept thinking about it after I was finished reading it. I just want to tell everyone about it. I'm just like, this book is so interesting. So, yes. Really, really enjoyed it.
That's such a good sign.
Yeah, I think you should read it. It is kind of creepy, though. So maybe save it for fall. I don't know. Maybe that might be more of a fall vibe.
Maybe it's a bit of a fall book.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's some murder vibes.
Yeah,
what's funny is I filmed a reel for our Instagram last week. I filmed 2 at the same time. I filmed one that was like women in translation books that I recommend.
Yeah.
And then one was women in translation books I want to read.
There you go.
And that one was in it. I put that one in it. So we're clearly on the same brain wave.
Absolutely.
That's sick.
Absolutely.
That's sick that has a stamp of approval.
Hell yeah.
Stamp. Okay, well, so that's all the stuff you read. What are you going to be what are you reading?
Ooh, okay, well, I'm actually going to just start with my book haul because I'm reading one of the books that I got. So
nice.
I'm just going to take you from the top, and I have a lot, so I'm just going to kind of try to zip through them, not talk about them too much. But the book I'm most excited about is on top of the pile, so we'll start with that. I finally got Only Child by Rhiannon Navin, which is a book that I think I recommended without having read it. Brenna Thumler read it, loved it, and then told us about it.
That's so funny.
And so this has been like my #1 most wanted book. And for some reason, it was like a mashed potato purchase. I don't know why. I just kept, like, I had it on my wish list, and it's like the book I wanted most, but I kept not buying it because I was like,
classic.
I need to wait until the perfect moment. And now I'm just so excited to have it because I really want to read it. It's told from the perspective of I don't know if he's 5 or 6. He's in the 1st grade, and there's a school shooting.
Okay.
So it's a very stressful book told from the perspective of a child, which just sounds perfect for me. Obviously, you all know I love Room, so that's what I want. All right, next up. Very excited to have Fangirl Volume 3, the manga.
Fantastic.
It's so pretty. This actually was perfect timing because I didn't realize it was out, and you texted me about it like the day before it came out or the day after, like something like that. And so I just immediately was like, well, like, I guess I've got to buy this. You know, like when you're on vacation, you buy books. My vacation was at home, but still I needed to buy the book. So I'm really excited to finally have this one. And something I didn't realize, or I guess I kind of realized it, but the first 2 volumes, like each one has a different season on it, which is really cool. Like the first volume is fall, the second volume is winter, and this one now looks like spring. So I really love the aesthetic of the books. Very, very good. Next up, another very exciting one that people have been messaging me about quite a lot. Did you see it a little bit?
Yeah, I saw a little peek of it.
I got She and Her Cat by Makoto Shinkai and Naruki Nagakawa, which is the short story collection version of this. I have the manga version of this that came out many years ago. So I think that maybe that's going to be one of the short stories, like will kind of be that story, or maybe it's a bunch of short stories about the same woman and her cat. Maybe. I have no idea, honestly, but so many people have like recommended this book to me, and it has been on my wish list since the moment it came out. So I'm glad to finally have it. It's also like very short. Like, I don't know if you can see, but it's like a little teeny tiny.
It's a lot smaller than I thought.
I thought it was going to be a chunky boy, but it's not. Okay, next up. I got The Great Gatsby graphic novel.
Right, you sent me a photo of this one.
Yes, this was a teaser trailer I sent to you because you just had to know something I got. And
well, Raylene told me she bought some books. I was like, send me one photo.
I went nuts. I think I have 9 books.
Oh my God, that's so exciting.
But this graphic novel adaptation, it was adapted by Kay Woodman Maynard. And I'll put some B-roll of the art because the art is so pretty. It's just like the colors are so gorgeous, and each page is a little bit different. Like it doesn't follow a color palette, through each page or whatever. But it's I'm so excited to read this. Like I definitely want to read this before the summer is over because Gatsby is such a summer vibe, and I have been meaning to get this book for quite a while. That's another one that's been on my wish list for a really long time that I just kept not buying, and I happened to find it at my local bookstore, so I bought it there.
When did it come out?
I feel like it was probably in the past couple of years, but I feel like I've been meaning to get it for like, it doesn't have a copyright page at the beginning. Our graphic novel's backwards. Here we go.
So usually they're at the last page.
2021, apparently.
Okay, wow.
So, yikes.
2 years.
That's big yikes. Yeah, I should have bought that a while ago. Okay. Next up, I have a couple more that I just got recently. So I went to the used bookstore and just like bought that book, but I also picked up Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson.
I love that cover.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, it is great.
This is a book that I've had like in the back of my mind as something I want to read for quite a while, and I've just never found a copy of it. And I happened to find this at my local used bookstore for $7. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to grab that. It sounds so weird and so good. It's like about a woman who is babysitting her someone who used to be a friend a long time ago or something, her kids. She has twins, and they spontaneously combust when they get too hot. Like they literally light on fire.
Oh my God.
So it's like a strange magical realism type of thing. And I'm like, this is so weird. Like, okay, that sounds great. It almost sounds like a bored woman book, but with fire.
Did you watch the others?
Oh, I watched that many years ago. Yes.
Okay. That always reminds me of that because
true.
like in the others, that's a horror movie where the kids are allergic to the sun. So the mom is always closing curtains and locking doors, and it's like a very stressful...
Yeah, like you have to pay attention to it all the time.
Yes, exactly.
You can never stop thinking about it.
You can never rest. Yeah. Ooh, that's stressful. Cool.
Okay. This next book I'm very excited about because I think that you may have also purchased this book. I have some insider intel. So I got Swimming in the Dark by Tomasz Jadrowski.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know if everybody listening to us follows Elias Reads on Instagram, but you should. He has very, very good taste and reads lots of cool books. And recently read this book and absolutely loved it. And I was just like, I'm going to just take that recommendation because I've had this book on my radar for a while. I have almost bought this book for you so many times because it has swimming in the title.
Oh, really?
But I wasn't sure if it was actually about swimming, so I did it.
Okay.
It's like a coming-of-age story set in 1980s Poland. And I think it's about two boys falling in love. That just sounds so good.
That's so funny, Raylene, because...
Yes.
I saw Elias post those things on Instagram. Like he was posting all of these posts about how much he'd love this book. Yeah. And at the time he was like hadn't revealed what book it was. He was like, I just read like the best book of my life. I'm gonna be making a whole vlog about it. And I messaged and I was like, what book is it? Like I don't want to wait for the video. I want to just know. And he was like, it's Swimming in the Dark. And I was like, is that book actually about swimming? Or is that just like a cool title? Yeah. He was like, no, it's actually about swimming and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, I'm buying it. And so I ordered it. I haven't gotten it yet though. So it's coming,
for a second I got scared that you were going to say you actually didn't order it because I was told that you also purchased it because it was funny because he posted like a little picture of the cover that was just like a tiny little corner and I recognized it because like I said this book has kind of been on my like soft wish list for a while. I guess I've just been kind of like maybe I should get that, but I don't really know anything about it, and just like one strong recommendation was all it took for me to pick it up. So and it's really short. I wasn't expecting it to be so small.
Tiny.
So really excited to have that.
That's so cool.
And then the last part of my book haul is some books that I was sent by Penguin Random House. So thank you so much.
Exciting.
They were gifted to me because I have a new best friend at Penguin Random House. So thanks, Cameron. So I requested a couple of very random books. I was actually just like browsing Penguin's website and they had like an article or like a list type of thing that was books to read if you love everything everywhere all at once. And I was like,
perfect.
Okay. So I selected 2 books off of that list. So first up, we have How to Live Safely in a Science Fictional Universe by Charles Yu, which
great title.
He is the author that wrote Interior Chinatown that I really loved a couple of years ago. This book came out before that one though. So this is one that have been thinking about like reading it, but I've never come across it because it's kind of like an obscure book almost. And I don't know what it's about at all, but I'm so excited. It's kind of like random graphs and like kind of interesting formatting throughout the book.
Sick.
So I'm really, really pumped about that. Like, I'm just going to show it to the camera. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
What the heck is that? So
what is that?
I don't know what that is, but I'm really excited because I loved Interior Chinatown so much. Like, such a thought-provoking and funny book. So I feel like this hopefully will have similar vibes, but we'll see. And then the next book that I got off of that list is called What My Bones Know, a memoir of healing from complex trauma by Stephanie Fu. So this is a little bit more of a stressful memoir vibe, which I love, obviously. Like I'm so interested in learning more about people and people's experiences. And I don't know too much about this one. I know that the author was diagnosed with complex PTSD, I think, was something due to her childhood. And this is about that experience and like her being diagnosed and kind of coming to terms with that. So I'm really, really intrigued to get into that one soon, hopefully. And the last book is what I'm currently reading, which is why I saved it for last. And that is Happy Place by Emily Henry. So I'm really loving this book. So let me just tell you a little bit about this book. So my experience with Emily Henry is that I've read Beach Read, but I haven't read any of her other books. So I have like this gap in her. But I'm gonna go back and read them all now. Now I'm convinced like she's my romance go-to. I like Taylor Jenkins Reid and Emily Henry. That's all I need.
Nice.
So this book, and this is her newest one. So go get it if you think this sounds good because it's so good. So it's almost like an adult The Summer I Turned Pretty a little bit. Not quite, but a little bit. So the main character is this woman named Harriet, and she, in college, like met her two best friends who have now been her best friends for 10 years. So this is like when they're 30. But it kind of goes back and forth between the past and the present timelines. So the story is about them basically going to this like cabin. It's not really a cabin. It's a fancy house by the ocean. But they call it their cabin, and they go there every year. And at the beginning of the book, they go there, and her friend whose like dad owns this house is selling the house, unfortunately. And so they're like, this is our last summer. We got to really make it count. And like two of them announced that they're getting married, and they're like, we're getting married this weekend here at the, it's all happening. But the kind of wrench in this whole plan is that Harriet is supposed to be engaged to this guy who's also a friend in the group, but they've secretly broken up and not told anyone yet. And she was planning on telling her friends at this big week when they're, going to be getting together because he wasn't supposed to be there. But she shows up and he's there, and she's like, what is going on? So it's this like, things are complicated, things are messy because nobody knows that they're broken up, but they're, have to sleep in the same room and all this stuff because they decide we don't want to ruin this for our friends. We need to make it a good week for everyone. So there's, a lot of crazy romance stuff going on, but it is so funny. Like this book is hilarious. Really? Within the first 20 pages, I had laughed like 10 times because the main character is very witty, like in a way that nobody would ever talk like this, but I don't care because it's a novel.
But it's fun for a character.
It's so fun for a character. Like the banter is really, really good in this book because all the characters are just so smart and witty, and I really love it. So if you want something just like truly very fun and funny and super easy to fly through, like I'm about 2/3 of the way through it, and I just started a couple days ago. I'm really, really liking it. So I have a feeling it's going to be up there as one of the best books I read this year potentially because it's just so fun, and it's such a nice kind of left turn after all the kind of like stressful books I've been reading. I was like, I need to read a happy summer book before the summer is over. So I'm really, really loving it, and thanks again to Penguin for sending it to me because I wouldn't have been reading it if it weren't for that. So.
Yeah, we will link to those books down below, and thank you to Penguin for sending those over to Raylene.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, classic so Raylene.
Yeah.
All right. It's exciting, you guys. It's time for us to switch over to chatting with A.S. King.
Hell yeah.
So let's cut to future us and talk with A.S. King about her new book. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our exciting author bookshelf diving segment. I admit we need a better name for this segment. Something will occur to us. Maybe leave comments for what we should name this segment. The deep dive sounds too boring to me. It's been done. But we are here today with the marvelous, wonderful A.S. King. Welcome back to the stage, Amy. We're so excited to have you here again. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. I love this idea of the deep dive, and I agree that you need a new name for it. And I'm pretty good at that. So if I think of one, I'll let you know. But thank you for having me. I loved your questions.
Okay. I'm really glad because I had so much fun putting the questions together. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll admit I didn't realize that I needed a name until I started introducing the segment. And I was like, oh, we did not plan that far ahead. But we're here because we're celebrating your new book that's coming up. So I want to start by talking about the new book.
Isn't it pretty? Yeah. Nice. Okay. I'll start by telling you, okay, it's called The Collectors. It is my first ever anthology. I've never edited an anthology before. I've been a freelance editor of other people's novels, but this was so much fun. So to boil it down into kind of the ideas, this is what happened. Honestly, I did wake up from a dream. And if you know me, I write surrealism. Okay. So, yes. And if you know me even better, you know that I've been having trouble dreaming for the last few years. So it's kind of weird that I even had a dream. But I had this dream where I had a collection of stories about collectors. And so I woke up and I thought, and I walked around for only a few minutes going, I could write a series of short stories because I love short stories. It's one of my things that I teach up at the college, and I love short work. And then I was like, no, that doesn't seem right. And then within no time, I came up here to my office and it said weird short story collection, and right next to it said, and I put collection about collectors, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a story collection for people I admire, writers I admire, or my friends, especially the ones who are always like, how come you can write such weird stuff? And so for me, what I wanted to do was do two things. So basically I basically dared 9 of my favorite authors, right, to write me the weirdest thing they possibly could. And here's the theme. The theme is it has to be about a collection or a collector. And that can be metaphorical. It can be, I collect enemies. I collect insults. I collect, inner thoughts that are unhealthy or healthy for that matter. It could be lint. It could be rabbits. It could be mothers-in-law. I don't know. Any noun you can collect, though some of that is diabolical. So I sent them that. And what I said was, I have a thing above my desk that's a quote by myself, which is weird, but whatever. It's a quote.
You gotta find inspiration where you can get it, right?
And it says, be defiantly creative. And so that's what I said to them. I was like, be defiantly creative. There are no rules. And the other thing I really realized when I was writing the proposal to sell it and get the project off the ground was that there's a currency in weirdness, especially for writing for young adults. And when I say young adults, I don't actually mean like teenage kids. I mean, literally young adults. Yeah. And that can be up to 30 in my world because I'm in my 50s. So I look back, I'm like, I was a young adult until my mid 30s. So it's like, the idea that young people, no matter how popular, actually feel weird on the inside. I think all of us did. It didn't matter if you were like Troy from High School Musical, he felt weird.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Like Gabriella, they both, I'm sure they both felt weird on the inside, though they were popular and apparently knew lyrics to songs before anyone gave them the songs. But anyway, my contributor list was stunning. So I'm going to tell you who's in this book. It's N.T. Anderson, E.E. Child and Trujillo, David Levithan, Corey McCarthy, Anna Marie McLemore, Greg Neri, Jason Reynolds, Randy Rebay, and Jenny Torres Sanchez, and me. So it's 10 stories altogether. I got to write one as well.
Fantastic. What a list. No kidding.
It was great. It was just lovely to basically dare him. I'm like, I dare you.
What you got.
I dare you to write something really weird. Yeah. And part of it came from an interview I did with Jason Reynolds back when Switch came out in 2021. And he kind of leaned forward. He's like, Amy, I got a question for you. And he reads my books and he's like he's a fan, we'll say. He appreciates what I do. But his question was, why don't you just write a straight up book? Like, meaning like not so weird, and I just, I did answer him like, I don't know any other way to write a book, Jason.
Yeah.
Like, it's just how I am. And so it was fun to be able to look at him and go, why don't you write me a weird story?
There you go.
I can turn this around.
And he said yes, and I was so thrilled. And I mean, the same with everybody. To me, I felt just as thrilled about every single person on this. But it was just so interesting that he'd asked me that, and that gave me sort of it was a catalyst to saying, you know what, I'm not that weird. Y'all want to be weird? Go ahead, be weird. And so that's
what's that card in Uno that you put down and it flips
card.
it back?
Reverse.
Yeah, you did the reverso card.
I did. I gave a reverso card to Jason Reynolds. But and it's funny because what was amazing about editing, there was so many things about editing that I loved. Like I really want to do another anthology one day soon because it was so much fun to do. But what was amazing is that no matter how weird fill in the blank author, doesn't matter. No matter how weird they're being, they're still themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So like when I got David Levithan's story and I read it, I was like, that's pure DL, man. That's pure David Levithan. And it was the same with Tobin Anderson. And it was, so it's the same. Everybody has this thing that they have. And in a way, we can't get rid of it. Like, and it was wonderful to be weird with it anyway. So it comes out September 19th. It's called The Collectors. It's you also asked before, I'm just going to jump in because I know you asked this question. What am I most looking forward to about this book? I'm most looking forward to hearing from more people about kind of how these stories are so, because they're very different authors. I mean, I think that's the fun part, to have Greg Neary, who's technically a nonfiction writer, in here, and say, be weird. Well, what does he think? What does that mean? What does he think weird is? Right? Like, and then to have someone like me who I honestly, like, I don't want to say that I don't know what my story's about. I do, but like, it'll take a while for me to go, oh, that's why I wrote that story then. And that's what it was about. But I think that like we're going to do 3 virtual events. And that's going to be like, it'll be it'll be me interviewing 3 people each time. Right. So it'll be
neat.
And it'll just be during the week, like the week of release. So it released on the 19th, the last event's on the 26th, but that's going to be fun. And it's going to be kind of cool to have them all in one space. Cause I can't do everybody at once. Cause that would just be
crazy overwhelming.
But I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward. We just got word of our 2nd starred review. We've gotten 3 very favorable, very good reviews so far. So really excited about
Knocking them out. Knocking them out.
Yeah.
I am so excited about this collection. I was so excited when I found out that your new book was something so different. Like I like you said, you haven't edited an anthology before. So this is like a very exciting project. You really did answer all the questions I was going to ask, but I will just add to everyone, everything is linked in the description. So if you want to check out the book, it is linked in the description. Definitely go check it out. We'll link to Amy to your Instagram as well. I'm sure you'll be posting updates about those events there as well. I have one final question about the book. What is your collection in the book? What is your character collecting?
That is a wonderful question. My character, it's layered, because of course it is. You're talking to me. It is a collective of 40 million teens, which is about how many teens are in America. Okay?
Oh, wow.
So it's from the collective point of view. So it's we versus I, except there is a character named Jasper Miller who can I. In fact, he's the only I who can I. So all the we's are kind of a little bit salty about Jasper being able to I and have his own thing. So the collection there's several. So there's a collection of people. There's a collection of what Jasper Miller is doing, because the problem with the 40 million people that we're hearing from, they can't find home. They can't find home. And so Jasper builds many, many skyscrapers inside of himself. And so he has a collection of dwelling space for all those people who can't find home. He lets them live inside of himself. But with those people come the collection of terrible self-talk and terrible things that have been said to you. And so they say some of the most base crap. I was like, oh, this is coming out of my fingers. This is terrible.
Wow.
There's a moment where, of course, because again, it's pretty weird, where they remove their ears and they think about actually eating them so they never have to hear the terrible things that they say.
Wow.
And so it's a collection of it's a collection of people. It's a collection of inner thoughts that aren't great. And it's also a collection of dwellings inside of Jasper Miller. There's just a lot of collections inside my collection.
If people were wondering what you meant when you said weird, and now they get it. They're like, Gotcha. This sounds so good.
Sounds
I'm so excited to read it. All right. Well, let's talk about another collection, a very personal collection, your bookshelves, the ultimate collection that we are all slowly working on till we die. We want to do a bit of a deep dive onto your bookshelves. So,
Okay.
Raylene, let's ask the first question here. I think you have them in front of you.
I do.
What are our book diving questions?
All right. So the first question is, what is the last book you added to your shelves?
All right, so I came prepared. I'm so stoked
excited
about these questions. I just went to Europe for a little while and drove around, and I went to this incredible. My main destination was Ljubljana in Slovenia, and I've always wanted to go, and it was my chance to go. Little did I know that when I got to the Modern Museum, I would find these cool, like they're just like it's a journal, right? But it said the weirdest thing on it, and I was like, "What the heck is this?" Right? So it said,
"What the hell's going on here?"
Yeah, it said on the bottom, "Glossary of Common Knowledge." So I was like, WTF? And then it had this sort of stuff on the inside. I'm like, I don't understand what this is. And then it explains, use this notebook to map your glossary. Choose a referential field, circle the referential field, choose a term that will correspond to the referential field from one or more perspectives, etc. I'm not going to get into it. So I was like, what? And then I found these two books, which are so far the two giant volumes of exactly what I just described to you. People making a glossary of their common knowledge. It is fascinating. I have only really skimmed since I got back because I've been, I've been only back, a while, but evidence is a word, is this person's chosen word. And they're all like just essays by one person who talk about like there's fragility. Someone wants to talk about what fragility is. And it's like, then there's different, in context, they'll have fragility from certain artistic practices or fragility of whatever. And then like the word interest. And so it's just fascinating.
That sounds fascinating. I also think you made a really bold suitcase choice there.
Those are two giant
volumes.
volumes.
Buying a new one to bring home all of my books? Because that's what I did, Ariel.
I respect the hell out of that.
I went with 2 carry-ons. I told my kid, I'm like, listen, we're doing 10 countries with a carry-on. That's it. And so we did that. And then by the time we got to Italy, I'm like, okay, well, I think that maybe we should buy another suitcase. Because these were not the only books I bought at that museum because it was a summer sale.
Thought so.
Anyway,
that's fantastic.
The answer to the newest things I added to my shelf.
Heck yeah.
They're beautiful. God, a gallery or a museum shop will always get you. Yeah. All right, Ray, what's the
next up is, what is your coolest signed book?
I'm so excited to see.
This could go so many ways.
There's a tie. Okay.
So
this is cool to me. This is the book that moved me. You can't see it because of the shine. This is the book that moved me into the writing chair. This is Salman Rushdie's The Satanic Verses.
Wow.
I have a hardcover exactly like this downstairs. That is the one that actually I remember closing. I had to close the back cover and go, I'm doing this now. And I got up and I went into the next room and I started to write novels.
Wow.
I was 24. But this is not that copy. What happened was I saw Salman Rushdie at the Philadelphia Free Library one night. He was amazing. The librarians got me free tickets because I love them and they love me, I hope still. And anyway, so he was there. He was talking. This was about, I'm going to say like 7 or 8 years ago. And I was going to wait in line and get my book signed because, of course, I brought my copy.
Yeah.
And I brought my sister, and I'm not going to get into, but she's like, I don't really feel like it. And for some reason, I just was like, fine, because I wanted to please her, because that was my whole life, and that has changed, and that's fine. But
we're all growing.
Like, she didn't understand, like, if this was your favorite author, and this was so important to you, and your entire life was built on this book, because my whole career, you would wait for me. Like, it's that simple. Oh, life's too long, I don't feel like it. Fine, whatever. Anyway, the next week, I went to Portland, Oregon, and my favorite librarian in Portland, Oregon, a school librarian named Paige, said, I have something for you. And she handed me a bag, and in it, she handed this, because Salman Rushdie went from Philadelphia to Portland. And he didn't just sign it for me.
It's got your name and everything.
My name in it. I was
like, God.
What? And this is the best gift ever.
Seriously, that's so thoughtful.
That's my coolest one. And then my other coolest one is the Arc of Two Boys Kissing by David Levithan. And the reason it's cool is because of what he wrote in it. He wrote to Amy, wife of my next life.
Aw.
Which, I mean, they're going to have to fight over me now, the amount of people that say I'm the wife of their next life, honestly. But
how many
anyway.
lives are we talking about?
I know, right?
That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
I love that. God, I was wondering if you would have a Salman Rushdie or a Kurt Vonnegut one, because I know those are like the
Yeah,
two.
prime.
I wish I had a Kurt Vonnegut, but I don't have. I never got to meet Kurt. I'm so sad about that.
All right, here's another fun
All
one.
right, Ray.
What is the oldest book on your shelf?
And this was also a fun one for me because I interpret everything 3 ways. But the oldest book on my shelf, I was like, oldest to me, I have the thesaurus. I got when I was 7. I'm like, I don't think that's what they mean. And then I found the oldest looking book.
Yeah.
And this was actually it's a poetry book. I love that it's called contemporary poetry. So I was like, rethink that. Are you going to outlive your title? Right? But that was from 1924. But in fairness, this is a book that's obviously in POD now, and it's kind of ugly looking now, but this is called the Powwow Book. And originally, there's a book that's really close to my heart, and it's called Long Lost Friend by a guy named John Homan. And it was technically printed first in 1820. And when I was doing research in high school and college, I was using this book, but I wasn't allowed to photocopy it, touch it, take it. Well, we didn't have pictures, we didn't have phones then.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do anything to this book except for handwrite notes. I'd have to go to the library and then they'd kick me out and I'd have to return it like it was like the Holy Grail, into this special little glass cabinet. And so I spent so much time with that book from the 1800s that I feel like it's mine, and it's the oldest one I have, even though it's technically you can buy it on Amazon now, Not to say I would ever promote anyone buying books on Amazon, but that's between y'all and God. But that's technically the oldest book, even though physically it's not the oldest book.
Well, that's cool.
But the Powwow is Pennsylvania Dutch white witchcraft, and it's just a really interesting book for all kinds of messed up stuff because it's all Bible based, right? That's the whole point of white magic. So it's all Bible based, which is so interesting if we look at today's time, which is the funny thing about the word contemporary. But anyway,
that's such a fascinating word. Like the whole concept in movies and stuff, when you see characters that are like in 1922 and they're like, we can't stand for this. It's 1922 for God's sakes. And you're like, we all think we're living in the modern era, but obviously there is no modern era.
That's
love that.
Crazy town.
Nicely said. There is a modern era. That's true.
All right, Ray, what's our
All
next
right, next up. What is a book you think is underrated and wish more people were reading?
Damn.
Okay. So as usual,
got a few.
I've not only got a few, but I actually have to, the word underrated hurts me because when they do those, what author do you think is underrated? They're like A.S. King. And I'm like, it hurts. I know what you're saying. You're saying is that if you like my work, it's a positive thing. But at the same time, ow, that hurts. So what I decided to do was bring you an obscure book that you've probably never heard of that I assigned to every single one of my students because I love it. It won the Prince Honor in 2010. Same year I won the Prince Honor, a Prince Honor for Please Ignore Vera Dietz. Exactly. Yes. It's called Nothing. The author is Yanni Teller. It's a translation from Belgium. And it is a stunning book. When you read it, you will either think Amy is disturbed. I have had students come back to me and go, why did you make me read this book? Or students that went, oh my God. Exactly. I'm here for you. It is a really interesting book when it comes, it's a very existentialist book. It's honestly the most existential thing I've ever read. So I'm not going to say underrated. I'm going to say unknown here in America for the most part. Wonderful book. I highly recommend it. It's a little old now that it's 13 years old, but it's timeless. It's timeless.
Good answer.
Great
so
book.
maybe we need to reword this to just underread.
Yeah.
Maybe,
books we are underread.
That's just my own personal thing because I am like, if people are like, well, who's the most underrated author? I'm just like, oh, great. And it's like,
Here
oh,
I
look,
am again.
Somebody tagged me on Twitter, and I'm like, they tagged me as underrated, which is still a compliment, but also it's just this sort of like, that's reality that I face every morning, and I still get out of bed.
No, you might be right about that. That's funny.
It's all good.
All right, Ray, what's our next one?
Ariel got excited about her own question. What is your favorite bestseller where you totally agree with the hype? That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right. I actually don't know if this was a bestseller, but I think it was. And if it wasn't, it was very popular. But I chose Percy.
Totally agree.
Because I'm a Pennsylvania author. Yeah,
Totally
Pennsylvania
agree.
author, except just the other side of Pennsylvania. But it took me a long time to read this book. Like I was probably like 10 years after when did it come out? 10 years after it was published, I'd say, or thereafter.
Yeah, it came
And
out in the 90s, which is always
oh my
surprising
gosh,
to
yeah,
me.
it's 99. All right, so yeah,
Yeah.
2009. Yeah, that's probably, it might have taken me more than 10 years to read it. But when I did, I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I haven't read that. Same as was it Jane Eyre? I think we talked about that once before. I couldn't believe that it took me that long to read Jane Eyre, and then I did, and I liked it. I was so surprised. But anyway, yeah, I can't disagree with the hype on that one. I think it's
no, it's so good. And you know what? The movie is so good.
I haven't seen it
because he wrote it.
Yeah,
he wrote and directed it, so of course it's gonna. Oh man,
yeah, that book
is
never
so
gets
good.
old.
Okay, I'll check the movie
Never
out.
gets old. Okay, our final question. Oh, this one's fun. Do you have a
Oh wow, this really fits.
a niche book collection that you have? Tell us all about it, because like I collect cat books, Ariel collects Ellen Montgomery books, and all sorts of other things. So do you have a niche collection on your shelves?
Speaking of the collectors,
it's so interesting.
Put your money where your mouth is, huh?
I know. What's so funny, the only real niche collection I have, and it's not really niche, is that I try to own everything Vonnegut wrote or had anything to do with. I am a Kurt Vonnegut freak, and you can see that he's joined Spock. We now have the love child of Vonnegut back there. That was totally invented by my children. When they gave me two finger puppets, which are right there. And then we were like, oh, that's the love child of Vonnegut. But anyway, I have all Vonnegut books. I do collect anything that's an old thesaurus. So I have what they call synonym finders. So any kind of old thesaurus, and I absolutely love old atlases. Now, when it comes to collecting them, I am starting, and I said this to Ariel before we started recording. Oh, I said it to both of you, really. But that I'm starting to get rid of my books. And it's one of the weirdest things to get to that age where you're like, I don't need these books. I can go to the library. I can, I have several, on one hand, I'm buying books so that I have several copies circulating in my queer library, so that when the kids come around to my house, they're like, oh my gosh, you have gender queer. And I can just go, oh yeah, here, read it and take it home and see, and then bring it back or not, or whatever. And so that's cool. So I'm buying extra books for that. But I'm also like going, do I really need an atlas that shows, the USSR? Like, honestly, like I'm aware of where it was. I lived during that time, and I don't need this atlas anymore. But it smells so good.
Yeah, and it just looks so freaking pretty.
Yeah, and so I do have and I would still old thesaurus. I don't even know if it's thesauri. I think it is, but any of those. That's pretty much as niche as I get. That's it.
I just wanted to show you, Amy. I actually have two of my Kurt Vonnegut's in front of me, and this one I read because of you, and has completely disintegrated.
Look, I'm so glad.
I know, it clearly has been well loved. But my friend just bought a bookbinding machine, a perfect binder, and I was like, I might be able to put this through that, and it would just glue
put them back
the
together,
pages together and add a new little spine, which I think would be a very cool rescue mission.
I think that would be cool.
It's a good idea.
Very cool, and I love that book. God bless you, Mr. Rosewater is still my favorite book.
Yeah, Animal Farm's still my favorite book.
Oh, I love Animal Farm. Oh my gosh, that was one of my favorites to teach to literacy students. You know what? 10 chapters. Can't beat it. Bam. It's just 10 chapters.
You can't be mad at that.
That's what I used to say, because adult literacy students, they have this oh my gosh, a book? No, we've been working on worksheets. We've been working on these things. And I'd be like, no, listen. First of all, and I would always have them clip the introduction. We don't care about the introduction. We don't care what people thought about this book. We don't care what people want you to think about the book while you're reading the book. Just start at chapter 1. And I had one student who's like, I can't do that. And I said, hand me the book. And I wrote the introduction out and handed it back to him. He was like, I'm like, yeah, I'm crazy. Read the book. But 10 chapters, I know. And one of the coolest things about Animal Farm, Animal Farm was, I think, what really copper faceted my feminism. As a young person, it made me go, oh, 2 legs right, bad, and 4 legs bad. Okay, and understanding that some animals get more rights than others.
Yeah, God, it's so good.
It's making me want to reread it
every time.
Yeah, me too. Every time I read it, I go in and I'm like, Ariel, relax. It's not going to I've built it up too much. And then by the time I finish it, I'm like, it was somehow better than I remember.
That's wonderful. I haven't read it. I haven't read it in easily a decade. I should probably read it.
It's time. Oh my God, it's time. Reread it. It's so good. You will be disturbed by how good it is. It's so good. All right. Amy, thank you so much for coming on. It's always so much fun to have you on. I have really enjoyed this energy that you've brought onto this episode.
Good.
Once again, everyone, I will link to the collectors down below. It's at September 19th.
Yep.
That was it? Okay, so yeah, you've got a month to pre-order it. And remember, everyone, pre-orders matter. They really help book out. And you've got an extra note?
I do. I have an extra note on that I do have on my website. Is that true? Is that even true? Hold on. Where is it? I have somewhere, probably on my Linktree or something on my social media. I have a link to pre-order this from my hometown independent bookseller. They will ship. They ship internationally.
Is it Aaron's Books?
It's Aaron's Books. You got
it.
Okay,
so that is on your website. I have double checked.
Yeah,
it's on your website. We'll link to it.
Thank you.
Link to it. That would be perfect.
Excellent. Thank you.
So there you go. Thank you so much, Amy. And thank you so much to everyone for hanging out. We'll talk to you in our next episode.
Bye.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, how great was that? That was the best. Thank you so much to Amy, to A.S. King, for being on our podcast. Yes. We feel very grateful to have had you on. And we feel very lucky for everyone listening who now knows about your book. So if you want to check out that new book or learn anything about it, we'll have lots of details in the description of the podcast, on the YouTube channels, on the show notes.
Yep.
The whole song and dance. And we'll also link to Amy, her Instagram, because you can follow all of the news there. So thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode, and we will talk to you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.